Okay, yes, hello. Today, so we are going to deal with the passive voice. Yes, you know that the topic today is the passive voice, and then we're going to start by saying that we use the passive voice for several reasons. Sometimes we use it because we don't know who did the action, so we refer to the subject. Other times we prefer not to mention it either because we don't want to make it public or because it is too obvious. And finally, we also use the passive when we want to stress the action or focus on the object of it, which now becomes the subject of the sentence. We're going to start with the passive voice, yes, and we're going to start just talking about the agent. In the first two cases, we do not find the agent at the end of the sentence introduced by the preposition by, but we may find it in the third case. So the passive is a very useful linguistic tool and it is much more often used in English than in Spanish. As for distractor, it is basically the same in English as in Spanish. Okay, good. So let's move on to the next. So if we want just to understand just the passive voice, so we must be familiar with these terms: active, passive, subject, object, and several verb tenses. And we cannot forget that the verb is going to be the protagonist here with the help of the auxiliary be, which plays an essential role. Okay? Good. So now we move on to the structure, yes, of the passive voice. In English, we use the preposition by to introduce the agent. So here we got the structure. In the active voice, we can find subject plus verb plus object. And if we want it to transform into the passive voice, so we need to do some changes. So for sure, we got the subject plus verb to be in the same tense as the main verb, plus the past participle of the main verb. And if we want just to add the agent, so we need the preposition by. For example, Peter has bought a present. A present has been bought by Peter. So here you can see the example. So let's move on to the next. Yeah, here we got some examples as well. In the active voice, Leonardo painted the Mona Lisa. In the passive voice, the Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo. So here you can find that the direct object of the active voice, yes, is now the subject in the passive voice. And then you can find the verb to be, that we use the verb to be in the same tense as the verb in the active voice, and is followed by the past participle. And it depends if we want just to use the agent. If we want to use the agent, we need the preposition by. And remember, it's very important the list of irregular verbs because it's essential, okay? You have to use it just to form the passive voice. Right. So we got more things. Yes, the impersonal passive. As we said before, we don't always find the agent in the passive voice. When transforming active sentences into passive ones, we sometimes have subjects like people, they, someone, somebody, etc. Okay, so these cases we do not usually include the agent in the passive voice, and these are called impersonal passives. Here you got, yes, an example, yes, from an active to a passive. So the next is Is I have prepared something, yes, a list of sentences that you had to transform, yes, into impersonal passives. Good. The next we are going to look up today is the double passive. This construction is basically just the same, but what you have to pay attention here is just the indirect object is a pronoun form. In some cases, we had to change the object pronoun for its corresponding personal pronoun to be able to add as the subject of the sentence. Okay, so here you go some examples. You can have a look at them. His parents gave him a watch. He was given a watch by his parents, or a watch was given to him by his parents. And finally, here's a paper, just a summary. Is about when to use the passive voice. So you have to read it, yeah. And when we are we are to show interest in the person or object that experiences an action rather than the person or object that performs the action. And then we got here. I have listed just 3 cases in which you have to use the passive voice. So much easier now. I hope so. So thank you for your attention and see you soon.